Hello and welcome to Start the Beat with Sykes. My name is Sykes and this is my podcast. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank everyone who checked out the last episode. If you're one of those people, I hope you enjoyed the conversation and thanks so much for coming back. But for everyone out there who's new to the show, welcome. Feel free to make yourselves at home. And as always, there's beer, soda, water, coffee in the fridge. Cheers to everyone out there on the internet. Anybody that doesn't know, let's start with Steel City Death Club.
Sure.
What is Steel City Death Club?
Steel City Death Club is a record label, and it's also a booking collective and a multimedia collective right now, too. So we do like videos, we do live sessions, interviews, we book shows, we have an audio studio. So like we record albums for people and stuff, too. And we're starting to, through some third parties, put out like tape runs, and we did a vinyl run, too. So kind of a hodgepodge of a bunch of different kind of talents and stuff, just like more of a pool of resources.
We're definitely working on our identity right now a little bit internally of like, because when people ask what is SCDC, our buddy Nate, he's like kind of our copywriter now, sort of, and he's been coming up with a lot of monikers for us, and one of them that we just put on our website is More Than Just a Label. And so that kind of speaks to that we're kind of trying to edge our way into any type of piece of something that a band needs.
Yeah, just kind of like trying to like foster an environment for our artists and even people through shows like that aren't on the label, through booking, just kind of like fostering communities around that and just like making networks of resources for people and stuff too. So especially for a lot of like us when we were starting out and kind of forming, none of us really had a lot of the talents of audio recording, video production, show booking, and just through like booking Roboto gigs and stuff like that over the course of in-house parties and, all the DIY stuff, kind of just like brought all these guys and girls together in like a real cool way. And so I guess the goal is just to foster more of those communities, and especially through this weekend, we just threw Death Fest, and it was a bigger success than we thought it was going to be. So just kind of keeping that train rolling.
Yeah, I think that it's really cool what you and everyone else who's involved with that project is doing, because it's really, really important to actually follow through with the whole like music scene being a community thing. A lot of times people say they're a part of the music scene, but really what they're doing is they're in a room with other people who are in the music scene, but there's no actual like, hey, how's it going? It's just kind of like a, what's up? And that's it, And I think that there's a lot of opportunity that is missed when people don't do that, because, sometimes I can't tell you how many times I've seen some motherfucker on Facebook that's like, I can't find somebody to shoot a music video. And it's just like, there's people that are at shows with cameras that you were playing. Ask them, you fucking dingus.
Yeah, no, it's just like, where's a good photographer? I'm like, yo, your last show had like 30 good ones. What are you talking about?
We just have been fortunate enough to cross paths and make friends with a lot of really talented people that can do things that we're adequate at doing and also do things way better than we're doing.
That kind of seems like everybody that's involved now has like, at least it's kind of organizing with like a lot of our shoots, like the live sessions especially, is everybody that's working has kind of developed like a set of skills, whether it's I'll do most of the recording and engineering and like producing up front, whereas you handle a lot of like the logistics and like filming.
I'm the secretary.
Like, yeah, I wouldn't say that. But I wouldn't say that. You definitely do a shitload, probably more than me. And then, like Evan does all the photography, and he's a great videographer too. So it's just a very cool to see how it's developed over the last like 2 or 3 years, and everybody kind of really fell into a skill set. And just keep it going. And I think the goal now is to like keep booking shows. Like I love booking shows with people I've never played with before, and that's kind of how I met all of them.
That's
like I'd never known Adam. Yeah,
that's your neck of the woods, is like the show booking thing and all that kind of stuff. And so basically, I echo what I call him Jeb, by the way. his name is Giovanni, and that's like I'm gonna call him Jeb throughout this whole thing. That's just his name to me, and it's
Fair enough.
That's a long story, but I am conditioned to say Jeb.
what's
and
You
your
not
are
nickname
you
for
are
me?
aware that you're here for long stories, right? Like that's the whole fucking
Isn't
thing
that-
that we're
yeah,
doing
that's
right now.
Well, why are you called Jeb then?
All right. Long story, not really, but in middle school, it's kind of still hurts my soul, but I'm still a little butthurt about it. Not gonna lie, throwing that out there. But this kid, I introduced myself to him. He was kind of a popular guy at the time. And so next day I came back into school and he couldn't remember my name. So he called me Jebediah.
And that's
Fuck.
it.
Yeah. And that
His-
stuck. And then I leaned into it so hard.
His
for a while,
girlfriend
but-
calls him Jeb. She doesn't call him Giovanni.
Yeah, it's like weird.
that
I've known her
rules.
forever, so it's just weird if you hear it now.
Yeah.
Sure. Nicknames are like that sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
So, anyways,
So, do you go by Sykes regularly, or do you go by Brian regularly?
I mean, I will say
It
this.
depend.
I will never introduce myself to somebody as Sykes.
Yes, I'm the same way.
Okay.
That's exactly.
But
how it
if
goes.
you call me it or some, it's I will totally react to it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all it is, you know. Back when I was playing a lot more solo rap shows,
yeah,
I would introduce myself as Sykes to like a promoter or somebody involved with the show because it's like I can't be like I'm Brian. And everybody's like, well, where's Sykes at? It's like, oh yeah, well that's me.
same thing.
You kind of have to because it's
Yeah.
like a performance thing.
yeah, you're there
Right.
like under your stage
The
name.
entertainment has arrived. But like if we're just like
Talent badge.
yeah, you're just fucking around with a couple people. Like I can't just be like, hey, I'm Sykes.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, it sounds so dumb. And like also keeping in mind that like this is like a hip hop moniker that I gave myself when I was a teenager,
Yeah.
and I am now not a teenager. Way
What?
past a teenager. I'm in my 30s. So to still be like using that name is like it really kind of grates me in a weird way, to be
Yeah.
honest. But that's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, we were talking about identity with Steel City Death Club too, and it's kind of the same thing, but also different. Like, yeah,
I just when people ask, I just usually say, "Don't worry about it."
what about
Like until we figure it out. Like, yeah, just like, well, what do you guys do? It's just like, you know,
we sit down and talk all the time, and obviously we've been planning a lot of stuff, so we haven't had much time to talk about big picture stuff. But that's definitely on the horizon of like, and that'll always change too. Like what Steel City Death Club is, like with what we're able to do.
It's always going to change in the way that this podcast setup always changes. You can't like put a goal on like an artistic endeavor because the beautiful thing about art is it like, even though you're kind of like a vessel for it, you don't really control it.
Yeah,
So it's going to turn into whatever the fuck it's going to turn into. And you just have to be along for the ride or not.
right.
anything that I've tried to put like those kind of boundaries on too set from the beginning and not willing to adapt, like it's ended up being shit. Or just ended up, goddamn, I wish I would have done this kind of stuff. So I completely agree.
Yeah, there's still the video's still out there, but I made this like documentary about us when we hadn't done anything yet in
Yeah.
college video class.
Like an assignment, yeah.
And it's like-
self-made doc, like let's go.
I had to do something, and it has all of us trying to like sitting down talking about it. Like, this is my guitar. It traveled many moons and many miles with me and stuff like that.
being
Just like a bunch of 20-year-old kids being like, "Yeah, I put miles on this."
I bought a Focusrite 1820. Like I'm so legit
I'm
now.
sick.
Like,
Yeah.
let's
But
go.
it's still out there. You can watch it. It's hilarious now, but like, you know, that's us trying to stumble through what we were then, and we're still trying to stumble
Well,
through what we are now.
You know, I've had a lot of like thoughts regarding that sort of thing, like the self-made documentary thing, because I'm definitely guilty of doing that when I was younger as well. And I think what it is just like, for me anyways, and I'm imagining it was the same with you, is like nobody knows who the fuck you are. Nobody wants to talk to you, but like you want to scream at the world and be like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So if you have access to the resources to make like a documentary, you do it. And then in a few years, you're like, you know, that's
It's
a
just
little.
so buried with the regular content we do now that it's
Yeah.
like, we might as well just leave it
There's-
there. It's
there's
like a
a-
stumble upon.
There's a studio tour in there, which is great.
Oh, so we're literally pointing out like this is where like the ripped drum heads
This
are.
is the
like,
drum
we're
head.
like, yeah, and I'm like, wow, that's so dumb. And I was
It's
like, that was
rad.
like 3 years ago. I was
Well,
just like,
I think that what's cool about going through all of that stuff is that now in the position that you're in running this, collective label, whatever it is, you can kind of guide some people in a direction to maybe not do those things.
Oh,
Like, hey, we did this. It was dumb. Don't do it. Or
That's true.
we played a show with this promoter. They suck. Don't do it. Or
exactly
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Like I know you talk a lot about like wanting to do younger shows for younger people.
Yeah. Well,
that
that's
are like
kinda
cool.
like that was the point of Death Club. Like when I founded it was like, at least there's so many different pockets of scenes, quote unquote, which is basically just the friend groups of bands and stuff. And like when we were starting out, especially teenagers starting to play at like the Moose and stuff, 14, 15, obviously you're not really going to run into anybody that's trying to book you too much. So it felt like there was all this stuff going on, but there wasn't a lot of resources for like, it's very hard to it's right under your nose is what I'm like. It's very hard to find your way into that. Even places like Roboto and like booking it at first, when I was younger, it was like difficult. How do you book a show? How do you do that? And there weren't really any resources to like learn how to, at least for me. So the idea was to just kind of like start booking shows and just lost so much money for, Roboto, all that stuff. But then it's like, you start kind of figuring it out. And now it's just like, that was kind of the point, I guess.
When you get offered a battle of the band at the Rex to play at 3 a.m.
Yeah, and you're just like 17 and it's a Sunday.
And you got school the next day.
What are you doing? It's just like, all right.
And the biggest cheer wins. Like, come on, bro.
Yeah, I don't know. So I guess the idea was just like kind of for that is like there weren't a lot of like opportunities or hard to find your way into those sometimes. Because a lot of the scenes are so split up, like especially genre wise, like there's very specific pockets of things. And I think the idea too was to kind of like pool a little more broadly than like some other people were doing at the time for like styles of music. But now it's just kind of turned into just whatever.
We want to do everything.
Yeah. It's just like,
Well, it's all kind of tied to the cliche of be the change you wish to see in the world type shit, right?
I guess.
And, I think that, if you're seeing a lack of things that you can be a conduit for, you start to do it. And, I've done it. You guys are doing it. Other people are doing it. And I find that it's a really good way to get yourself around like-minded people and really figure out like who gives a shit and who doesn't. Like you can't just like play shows with the same 6 bands every other month at the same
Which
venues.
We're all guilty of
Totally.
Yeah,
totally.
for sure.
Totally. But like, like it doesn't grow.
Yeah.
And until you're able to like open up that door and start sharing resources with people, because I think a lot of people tend to, I've never really gotten the vibe that like it was like competitive in Pittsburgh, but there are people that are very, lame. I don't know how to put it. They're just like standoffish, right?
Yeah, that's a good one.
There's a lot of that.
Like a lot of arms crossed, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and trying to like, I've had like, some of those people, I've gotten them on the show, and I get to talking to them like, oh, we're the same fucking person.
Yeah.
Like, there's just like a weird. I think maybe it's part of this like growing up in an alternative subculture and being a little bit of an introvert or something and not trusting other people or like you're like a porcupine or something.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
Especially too, like a lot of the different like scenes. Like we were playing with like metal bands when we were in high school on like Drusky shows.
In a band that wasn't metal.
Yeah, just like as an indie
Which
high
is
school
great.
band, just like the random last minute, like, oh, Drusky's like, we need an opener. Like,
Yeah.
come do this. And like those are the only people you'd interact with. So obviously these 4 50-year-old guys aren't gonna be interested in talking to you. And then it's like you do find a community, and then you go to a house show in Oakland, and like the crowd, everybody there, you've never met any of them. And so at first, that's at least for me was kind of intimidating, but then I just started loving it, like going to new shows and meeting new people and stuff. And especially like through music, like I used to only like certain genres of music, but as you go out to different shows or book more bands, like started having an appreciation for more of that. And I'm sure even having this podcast, like talking to all these people, like just, you probably just think about things. Way bigger perspective on like, especially in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I've had people hit me up and like, I mean, it's on both sides of the spectrum. I've had people hit me up that I have never heard of that have a decent following, and it ends up being like this gateway to a whole nother pocket of like weird like DIY R&B that's happening at like fashion shows and stuff. I'm like,
So sick.
okay, cool. And then there's people that have hit me up that I've wished I never met in my life.
Right.
But you know, it's all part of being in this. And I think that it's really cool to like have your fingers on the pulse of everything, because there is so much that's going on. And I find that like really inspiring to see what other people are doing in other scenes. I feel like I've gotten way more out of other genres of music and going to those shows than like the genres of music that like I typically play.
Yeah,
Sure.
You know, like
Yeah.
not every aspect of the Pittsburgh heavy metal community has been incredibly welcoming. And like some of our best shows have been the shows that we book ourselves, where it'll just be some weirdo lineup.
Right.
But there's a lot of cool stuff too, but it can be very like weird. I just don't get it. You know, I've said this 10,000 fucking times, but it's that thing where it's like, if this was high school, we'd all sit at the same lunch table. You know, you'd be the guy in the System of a Down shirt. I'd be the guy in the Korn shirt. We'd have one weird friend with a Foo Fighter shirt, but it's cool. Like we're all homies,
and then one
right?
who just came from Super Smash Club.
Yeah. Like we're all homies. And it's like, what changed? Like,
Depending on when you went to high school, the Foo Fighters shirt might have been sick or really lame. It depends. It depends.